So, it's sometime in the middle of 2023, and I'm stood in central London outside a huge glass building about to go and pitch to Octopus Ventures, one of the biggest venture capital firms in the UK. Now, this is roughly the 450th VC firm that we have pitched to over the 7 years that I've been running Small Robot Company. And up to this point, every single one of them has said no. But this is the one. We've been talking to one of the investors there, a guy called Myron, for about 4 months at this stage. He's already been down to the farm to see the technology and to meet some of the farmers using our services. And now he's invited us to the final investor panel, a panel which, Myron assures us, is just a formal sign-off. He's very confident they're going to be going ahead with the £5 million investment as planned. Now, the VCs, very intelligent, highly educated, several PhDs. I don't know what their PhDs were in, but it wasn't farming, because one of the questions I get is, can you tell me what liquid fertiliser is and what a sprayer is? I'm the farmer in the room, so I explain how it's done today, largely as a blanket application, but how artificial intelligence is going to totally transform this. How with structured, detailed data sets, we're going to be able to manage an entire field on a per-plant basis. Ultra-precise chemical applications. Huge increases in food production through plant optimization. AI is going to be the single most important technology in the history of agriculture. Well, the PhDs are mesmerized. As we leave the room, I know that it could not have gone any better. I get back out onto the London streets and I feel this huge surge of optimism and relief. 7 years, 450 rejections, but now we're finally going to make it and start delivering a proper service at scale to farmers. The next day, I'm on a farm walk with my dad when the phone rings. It's Myron. Deep breath. This could be a life-changing moment. Myron, good to hear from you. Sam, I'll cut to the chase. Octopus is not going to be investing. I couldn't get my partners to believe that farmers will buy this technology. I'm stunned. But Myron, I said, you know that farmers are buying this technology. You've met them. Well, yes, but that's just the first few, isn't it? Well, yes, it is the first few, but that's the point of your investment. That will take us from the first few to lots and lots. But the decision was made. There was nothing that I could say. Over the next few months, we stopped paying ourselves and we tried desperately to find a way out. We called everyone you could think of in agriculture, but to no avail. And eventually, we ran out of people to call. And so, at the end of February 2024, Small Robot Company went into liquidation. All 350 farmer investors, several of whom are in the audience today, lost their money. 72 hours later, I met up with my Nuffield cohort to head to Brazil. Over the next 4 months, with a huge sense of guilt and with my self-esteem at an all-time low, I traveled to Brazil, Canada, the US, and China. I met some incredible people on my travels, but I want to tell you about 3 meetings in particular because they shape what I'm doing now. The first was with the inspirational Terry Aberhart, running Aberhart Farms in Saskatchewan. Terry has grown his farm from 1,200 acres 25 years ago to over 19,000 acres today. I told him that land prices in Shropshire were approximately 15 times higher than they are in Saskatchewan. But then he said something that stuck. He said, Sam, everyone has an opportunity, but not everyone has the same opportunity. What's the opportunity in front of you? I loved my time with Terry, but now with the cogs turning in my brain, I had to head south to California, the heart of American venture capitalism. But it wasn't in Silicon Valley that I would have my most impactful meeting, but rather in Santa Maria, 250 miles south. It was here that I met Alan Pinko, a director of Behavioural Farms, an 11,000-acre salad and vegetable operation. Alan told me about his collaboration with the startup Blue River, which was founded in 2011 to look at microspraying herbicides using robotics and AI. Their initial work showed savings of 95% and a potentially transformative way to analyse the entire field on a per-plant basis. Then in 2017, Blue River was acquired by John Deere for $305 million. All of the work that was ongoing with Alan and other veg farmers was stopped immediately. What emerged from this acquisition was John Deere's See and Spray, a technology that makes their existing sprayers very, very slightly more accurate, and over a really limited range of crops. But obviously, this was a huge success for some people. But I don't think it was a success for farmers or for the industry as a whole, because Blue River started work on something that had the potential to be entirely transformative. And they ended up with a way of selling more John Deere sprayers. We have an innovation system that is dominated by venture capital, and it's just leading to more of the same. And maybe because of that, we have the same big companies at the top of agriculture that we have had for decades, and they are not driving the industry forwards to a better place. It was time for another plane journey, my third crucial meeting, and my search for a better alternative, which I did find in China. Beijing in the summer. Hot, humid, smoggy. I'm sitting opposite a woman called Mei Lin, who in 2017 set up a company called Beijing and Xin Technology to look at AI for pig units. They have raised the equivalent of $100 million, entirely from government sources. They employ over 700 people, and they're delivering services to thousands of Chinese farmers. Mei Lin explained to me that in China, there are competitive provinces who have autonomy to make big investment decisions within the framework of 25-year national objectives. You see, everyone thinks that the biggest problem in agtech is whether or not farmers will adopt new technology. But my time in China showed me that's one of our smallest problems. Farmers will adopt new technology if companies can survive for long enough to service them. In order for new technology to become widespread, we need a pathway for a startup, a new entrant, to become an enduring company of global significance. And only in China is there a thought-through way of making that happen. On the long journey back from China, I began to feel at peace for the first time with the idea that running an agtech startup in the UK was simply not going to be possible for me. I put my headphones in and I sat back. I was listening to a podcast series called Think Big, Buy Small, about a movement called entrepreneurship through acquisition. I stared out of the window at a vast patchwork of farmland stretching as far as the horizon. Suddenly, a realization hit me. We, as farmers, don't have to have our futures dictated by the whims of VCs or by the whims of governments. We already have all of the resources that we need. In fact, it's a resource that we stand on every day. Suddenly, my brain was tuned in to the idea that rather than building a startup from scratch, there are already thousands of established and enduringly profitable small to medium-sized businesses across a whole range of industries. Many of these have owners that are retiring and looking for an exit. We see the high price of our farmland as a major barrier to progress. But what if the high price of UK farmland actually represents our biggest opportunity? What if UK farmers collectively could become a major owner of these high-quality businesses across multiple industries, a kind of farmer sovereign wealth fund. The idea here is that these acquired businesses will service their own debt, so cash and dividends only flow into and not out of the farm business. The most significant problem that we have in the industry is that farming is simply not profitable enough. Many farms would love to borrow more to expand their enterprises, but they struggle to demonstrate enough profit to service additional debt. And so we've got a resource which is underutilized. You might be thinking you don't want to run a non-farming business. So what needs to be established here is something that enables the farmers to benefit passively from being an owner of these businesses whilst continuing to have their focus on being a really good farmer. And that's the next thing that we're working on. Banks will lend up to 70% of the value of farmland. But UK farm gearing currently stands at 12%. So if we look at the total value of UK farmland, that means there's about 232 billion of untapped potential waiting for us. I've had 7 years running a startup where I wasn't in control of my future. And when we see our industry marching in the streets of Westminster as we have in the last 12 months, I think a large part of that is that as farmers, we don't feel we have control of our future. But we can have control. We can self-fund our future. The power is already in the hands of us, the farmers, by virtue of the value of the land that we hold. Maybe something has clicked for you listening to this, in which case please do make sure you come and talk to me afterwards. I think we have huge opportunities in the UK. We shouldn't mistake the opportunities that we have for opportunities that really only exist in Beijing, Saskatchewan, California, or elsewhere. But if we can get clarity on the real opportunity in front of us today, there's no limit to what we can achieve. I want to thank Nick, Paul, and John at Elizabeth Creek for supporting my work. Thank you to Nuffield for the opportunity, and thank you all for listening.